Okay, I need to hear your opinion on these rankings, and I don't need you to skip to the end of the video, screenshot the rankings, and go down to the comment section and say, Mason, you are a fool. You have no idea what you were talking about. You are a clown. How is Braden Cooks ranked there? Dear God, I want to hear your opinion, but I want you to hear me out first. I want you to hear my analysis with these rankings. I'm going to skim by the first top 24 or so players because we've already talked about these guys in depth in previous videos. We do have some rankings updates, so I will be letting y'all know where we did have those updates, letting y'all know those top 24 official, and then move on a little bit deeper and go into the 25, 26, go into the high-end wide receiver threes with upside. But before we get into it, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football and somehow you are not subscribed already. I'd imagine 9 out of 10 people watching this are subscribed, but if you were that one person who isn't, fix your life. But let's go into this. Let's talk about this tier 1 of guys that, in my opinion, they all have access to be the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy. Kupp, Jefferson, Chase, Stephon Diggs in that order. Really the only player that I need to talk about is going to be Stephon Diggs. While yes, I understand not too many people are going to have them in this top tier with these other guys. I am personally looking at the Buffalo Bills offense as a team that we know should be top 5 in overall passing volume, as well as very efficient quarterback play with Josh Allen. Then you look at the fact that you have no Emmanuel Sanders, you have no Cole Beasley in this offense. I think we see regression with Dawson Knox and his touchdown rate this upcoming season. So if we have regression from Dawson Knox and we have all those targets available in Buffalo, you either have to be one of two things. You have to be a drafter that's willing to take Gabriel Davis in the middle of the 4th round because you think Gabriel Davis is an elite level player, which I don't think that. So instead, I'm going to be getting Stephon Diggs, that elite level target share up to 25, 26, 27% in this Buffalo Bills offense, which very few wide receivers can actually get to. And if you're able to do that in a Buffalo Bills offense, hell, you could just turn into Davonte Adams from the past few years. But speaking of Davonte Adams, our next wide receiver in his own tier, we are going to have down there at 5, Davonte Adams. Going over to Las Vegas, you have more target competition than he has seen in a very long time with the combination of Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. You have worse quarterback play than he's ever had in his entire NFL career with Derek Carr as well. So despite Davonte Adams being the most consistent wide receiver season after season after season starting in 2017, this would be the lowest I've ranked Davonte Adams in years. I think that he is a first round pick if you're playing in a league that starts 3 wide receivers. If you're playing in a league that only starts 2, hell, I may end up going running back round 1 instead of him. Now, going down to our 3rd tier, we do have an update here. We are going to put Mike Evans with the Rob Gronkowski retirement, with Chris Godwin potentially missing the beginning portion of the season. I think in a regular fantasy football league, you have to have Mike Evans at the very top of this tier because Mike Evans could easily be the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy if we are looking at the first 4 weeks. If Godwin somehow, some way gets placed on the PUP, which is definitely a possibility. And if that were to occur, Mike Evans is the unquestioned top dog in a passing offense that has been top 5 in passing rate over expectation, as well as pace of play. Now, maybe they change because the personnel, maybe they look to be a little bit more of a run-heavy offense without Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown, who were number 1 and number 2 in this offense last year in yards per route run. They were very strong receivers, even being a little bit older. But here we're having Mike Evans, wide receiver 6. If you see us drafting over there on Underdog Fantasy in a best ball tournament, no, I'm not going to be taking Mike Evans. I'll be taking CeeDee Lamb here, but that's just because on Underdog Fantasy, in those best ball tournaments, you have to be adjusting your draft strategy. It's going to be a very, very important thing for you to maximize the production you're getting in weeks 15, 16, and 17. I think Mike Evans will slow down by then, and I think CeeDee Lamb would be the wide receiver that you want in that environment because with CeeDee Lamb, very similar to Mike Evans, you're looking at one of the most productive passing offenses in the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys were number 1 last year. You're looking at a wide receiver that should be the unquestioned alpha in that environment, and over the past 3 seasons, you have the Dallas Cowboys as the number 1 team in pace of play. The number 1 team in pace of play in game neutral environments. You have no Cedric Wilson, no Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup tore his ACL after Chris Godwin did. So Michael Gallup's going to be missing the beginning of the year. I think CeeDee Lamb is someone that's going to be finally primed to break out. He's younger than Kenny Pickett as well. But real quick, if you are not drafting on Underdog Fantasy, go fix your life. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy, the #1 place to draft your fantasy football teams. I am almost 400 drafts in on Underdog Fantasy at this point. We draft there every single night on the live stream. You can get into drafts with us. And when you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, you will get our 2022 fantasy football draft guide with just a $10 deposit. That's like 300 pages of quality information for you to smash your drafts this year. They'll match your deposit 100% up to $100, so it's essentially free for you to try out. And then on top of that, you are going to be getting to have some fun with us in these drafts. You're going to get all our rankings, including our overall rankings in that draft guide. You can find the link down there in the description. Find it in the comment section. But rounding out the rest of this here, we are going to have Debo Samuel and Tyreek Hill at 8 and 9. Here with Debo and Tyreek Hill, I understand they last year were top dogs. I understand Tyreek Hill has been consistently a top 5 wide receiver, but very similar to Davonte Adams, a massive, massive step down in quarterback play. And with Debo Samuel, while nobody is a bigger fan of Trey Lance than I am, y'all know I've been pounding the drum for years now that Trey Lance could be the quarterback 1 overall in fantasy, given his unique situation he's stepping into, combined with the rushing upside. Lance isn't going to be good for Debo because Debo Samuel had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. Lance should vulture a couple of those away. So even though Debo Samuel's only going to be 26, stepping into his prime, and he was the wide receiver 3 on a points per game basis last season, we're not ranking him there. We're going to have him down here behind Evans as well as CeeDee Lamb. But now let's drop down our next tier. Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, A.J. Brown. Nothing to really talk about. Keenan Allen, a 25% team target share guy over the past 3 years in Los Angeles, has one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. T. Higgins, I'm expecting the overall Cincinnati Bengals offense to get better this upcoming season by potentially jacking up their play volume with the improved offensive line. They could even skew to be a little bit more pass happy. A.J. Brown, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, stuck in a bad situation, so we're going to have to rank him a little bit below his talent. Now our next tier, DJ Moore, 13. And I have been thinking about moving DJ Moore up. We had DJ Moore at 13 even before the Baker Mayfield trade. And I want to be the first person to say, if you go over to our 2022 fantasy football draft guide, which I'm sure 90% of people watching this video have already got their hands on, but you're looking at DJ Moore as a wide receiver that has played with Cam Newton, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, Will Grier, Teddy Bridgewater, PJ Walker, and Sam Darnold through his NFL career. Those quarterbacks during the time DJ Moore was in Carolina have averaged 6.05 adjusted yards per pass attempt. That would have been a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL this past season. Historically speaking, Baker Mayfield is significantly more efficient than 6.05 adjusted yards per pass attempt. Baker Mayfield will be the best quarterback that DJ Moore's ever played with, because keep in mind, when DJ Moore played with Cam Newton, it was not prime Cam Newton. It was not Superman Cam Newton. It was 25 injuries in Cam Newton, body falling apart Cam Newton. So I'm very excited to see DJ Moore this upcoming season. Now, Jalen Waddle, 14th receiver. I understand we are going to be a little bit aggressive on Jalen Waddle, having him here above Michael Pittman, above Mike Williams. He never goes before those guys on Underdog Fantasy, and I understand it's a bad situation for Waddle in Miami with Tua Tagovailoa as a below-average NFL passer with Tyreek Hill as well. But I am not going to be surprised if Jalen Waddle outscores Tyreek Hill this upcoming season. We've said this before on the live stream a million times. It's in our draft guide. But if you look at receivers that have averaged 7.7 targets a game and 63 receiving yards per game their rookie season, you have Odell Beckham Jr., Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones, AJ Green, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle. That's the type of talent you're looking at with Waddle. We're going to have Deonte Johnson at 15. If you were playing in a half PPR format or a non-PPR format, I would slide down Deonte Johnson because I don't think he has access to touchdown upside in a bad Pittsburgh Steelers offense, but the man averaged 10.5 targets a game last year. I still think he is going to get up to a 25% team target share, even with the quarterback change in Pittsburgh. Then at 16, we are going to have Michael Pittman. At 17, we are going to have Mike Williams. Hell, I know I'm going to be a little bit lower on these big-bodied wide receivers, but to be fair, Mike Williams has averaged over the past 3 years the wide receiver 40 finish on a points per game basis. Michael Pittman this past season was the wide receiver 28. So I'm projecting them to get better. I'm ranking them to get better compared to where they historically have been. I understand that each wide receiver has their own reasons to be bullish on. The market's very excited about these guys. These guys go at the 2-3 turns sometimes on Underdog Fantasy. I will probably be a little bit underweight on both of these players though. And now moving over to our next tier, let's go wide receiver 18, Hollywood Brown. With Hollywood, if you're playing in a traditional format where you can make trades throughout the season, Hollywood Brown's a great guy to go out there and target, maybe ride out that production through the first month, and then before DeAndre Hopkins is going to come back, go try to sell Hollywood Brown high, because this will be a wide receiver that's playing in the exact type of offense that we're looking for. We already talked about it with Buffalo. We already talked about it with Dallas. A team that's going to push the pace of play and throw the ball very often. Cliff Kingsbury is not a good NFL coach, but Cliff Kingsbury tries to play as if it's Madden. He tries to just go out there and use Kyler Murray as if he is a 14-year-old playing Madden. They have one of the highest no-huddle rates in the entire NFL, and they just push that pace of play. Kyler Murray has gotten better every single year over the past 3 as well. Obviously, they play together in school. But moving on, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy all in this tier. I understand DK Metcalf having him ranked at wide receiver 20 is going to be above ADP at this point, but I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to say with DK Metcalf. This is a wide receiver that has increased his target share every single year in Seattle over the past 3 years, can easily be one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL, but he is a truly elite level talent. So we will go ahead. We will take the swing on DK Metcalf. Now our next wide receiver tier is going to be led off with Chris Godwin at pick 22. With Godwin, I will be the first person to admit, yes, he can miss the beginning portion of the season. With Chris Godwin, he may start in the PUP. It was a very devastating injury that happened at the very end of the year. But when he comes back, we've seen Chris Godwin out-target Mike Evans on a per-game basis over the past 3 seasons. We've seen Chris Godwin also be negatively affected in games where Antonio Brown plays, given the fact that they are comparable receivers in their playing style, in the routes that they run. So I honestly think that the departure of Antonio Brown may help Chris Godwin more than it actually helps Mike Evans. And once you do get Chris Godwin back, say in week 3, week 4, week 5, hell, wheels up, top 10 wide receiver on a points per game basis. So we are baking in the injury discount here. Now I will say, if you were drafting in a league where, say, Godwin goes on the PUP and you're not able to put him on your IR and you have to burn a roster spot on your bench through the first month of the season. But if you have an IR slot, don't worry. You're going to be able to just draft him and then go ahead and plug and play him once he does come back. Now, our next wide receiver at 23 going to be very similar to DK Metcalf, a target hog in a very bad NFL offense. We're going to go Darnell Mooney. With Darnell Mooney, I understand that Chicago is horrible. I understand that Allen Robinson failed miserably, and I liked Allen Robinson last year. I was the idiot drafting Allen Robinson in round 3. But if we look at the target competition that Darnell Mooney currently has, you got Byron Pringle, Velus Jones Jr., Equanimeous St. Brown, Tajay Sharp, and Daz Newsome at the wide receiver position, Cole Kmet at tight end. And everybody wants to make excuses saying, oh, Allen Robinson had no shot to succeed last year. Allen Robinson would have done great on another team. No wide receiver ever could succeed with Justin Fields and Matt Nagy. Well, look at what Mooney did in year 2. Allen Robinson, 1.2 yards per route run. Darnell Mooney, 1.8. Their target share on a per game basis, Allen Robinson at 17%, Darnell Mooney at almost 26%. Their air yards per game, Allen Robinson 74, Darnell Mooney 92. Darnell Mooney succeeded in Chicago in year 2 last year. Let's see if he can take a step forward with no A-Rob this season. Now let's drop it down another tier. Let's go ahead. Let's throw Cortland Sutton there at wide receiver 24. Yes, I'm fine ranking Cortland Sutton as a top 24 wide receiver. I think that the expectation should probably be Cortland Sutton, who's never finished inside the top 24 going into his age 27 season, is now finally a wide receiver 2 in fantasy for the first time in his NFL career. If you go to that 2019 breakout season he had, yeah, you can look at the totals and they look very impressive because he played all 16 games, but on a per game basis, he was the wide receiver 27. Now here with Sutton, I will acknowledge the fact that yes, on paper, his playing style may mesh better with Russell Wilson compared to what we have seen with Teddy Bridgewater and Jerry Jeudy, because Cortland Sutton is the deep threat in this offense. Cortland Sutton, if we look at his air yards per game in 2019, 100 air yards per game. In 2021, 96 air yards per game. We know that Russell Wilson historically has supported two wide receivers with very deep average depth of targets with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Now, I'm sorry, but if we look at the splits with Sutton, I'm not even going to go to the splits. Thomas, you can pop them up on the screen. But those are games that Sutton and Jerry Jeudy have played together. We've talked about this a million times now. And if I just want to put the nail in the coffin here and why I am ranking Jerry Jeudy ahead of Cortland Sutton, if we go and look at their yards per route run, I'm not even looking at games that they play together versus not. We're just looking at yards per route run last year. Jerry Jeudy, who's younger than Kenny Pickett, Jerry Jeudy should continue to get better. 1.9, Sutton 1.5, Patrick 1.5. It's even worse if you look at the games that they play together. So I do want to believe that Jerry Jeudy is the wide receiver 1 in this offense, that Cortland Sutton is going to be the wide receiver 2. But now let's go ahead. Let's move down to our wide receiver 3s. Juju Smith-Schuster, someone that we have talked about before. Here with Juju Smith-Schuster, I understand the upside play. With Juju, he's going over to Kansas City. And one thing that I want to be looking at is not necessarily just the fact that, yeah, you don't have Tyree Hill in this offense. But it's not like Tyree Hill was the only player to leave. You also do not have Byron Pringle. You also do not have Demarcus Robinson. Now, the combination of those three wide receivers leaving Kansas City is opening up 317 targets, 2,500 receiving yards, and 19 receiving touchdowns. Now, of course, that's not going to be just exact math because with the departure of Tyreek Hill, there's probably not going to be as many passing yards in Kansas City in general this upcoming season. But to just give you the idea of the type of volume that is now going to be available in Kansas City and why people should get very excited about Juju Smith-Schuster. And if also I'm going to be trying to convince you to draft Juju, which I'm not, but to be fair, I can go ahead and I can just look at, oh dear God, the beginning portion of his career and how freaking dominant he truly was. With Juju Smith-Schuster, if you look at 22-year-olds that posted 6 receptions a game and 85 receiving yards a game, 22 years old or younger, Odell Beckham Jr., Justin Jefferson, Josh Gordon, Larry Fitzgerald, and Juju Smith-Schuster. That is the type of season that you had from Juju in year 2 in Pittsburgh. Truly special player, going to a great situation. I am concerned because he's been very bad over the past 3 years. In 2019, 1.5 yards per route run. In 2020, 1.4 yards per route run. Yeah, it was a bad situation, but Deonte Johnson succeeded. If Deonte Johnson's going to succeed, you better be succeeding as well in that same situation, Juju. And also, the Chiefs are paying him nothing. I know he has some incentives with his contract, but in terms of the guaranteed money, guaranteed at signing, $2.5 million. Allen Robinson got $30 million guaranteed at signing. Allen Robinson got $30 million guaranteed at signing here. Juju's getting 2.5. Now, let's move on. Wide receiver 26, either going to be way below this or way above this when we get some Watson news. Maybe by the time this video is out, we have Watson news, but we are going to have Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper looks like he's going to be the alpha wide receiver in Cleveland and a pretty bad offense. Now, I'm ranking Amari Cooper here with the possibility that Watson's not gone for the entire season. Now, if Watson is gone for the entire year, Amari's probably going to fall down to being a low-end wide receiver 3. But if Watson were to come back, say in week 13, in week 9, say everybody is surprised and Watson only gets suspended 8 weeks, then all of a sudden Amari Cooper would have wide receiver 1 upside down the stretch this upcoming season. Overall, I'm going to be fading Amari, but at least he has a path to getting elite level quarterback play, unlike our next wide receiver, which we did call a bust-proof wide receiver. I don't think that he can really fail, if we're going to be completely honest, but I just don't see the path to a real ceiling. Braden Cooks. Now, if you're looking at Brandon Cooks, yes, wide receiver 21 last year on a points per game basis. Wide receiver 21, 2.1 yards per route run, 26% team target share. So you're looking at the wide receiver 21, and I'm moving him down to the wide receiver 26, and everybody's going to lose their minds. My issue is, I do not want to believe that Davis Mills is an average NFL starter or even slightly below average. I think that Davis Mills, despite being the top high school recruit in his class, despite having some pedigree and being the best rookie quarterback outside of Mac Jones last year, Davis Mills is a very bad passer. Davis Mills is a very bad quarterback. I want to say he doesn't really have any upside at all in Houston. And I am comfortable saying that because we are going to be looking at, oh dear God, Las Vegas putting the Houston Texans as a team that with a 17-game schedule, their implied team totals, their expected wins, 4.5. 4.5 wins, the lowest in the NFL this upcoming season. Las Vegas is telling us that the Houston Texans should be the worst team in the NFL. If they're telling us that, and Davis Mills is a quarterback that had no draft capital, that wasn't elite. It's not like he was rookie season Dak Prescott. I'm standing by the fact that I think Davis Mills doesn't have access to upside. I think Braden Cooks is a high floor player as a low-end wide receiver too. And if I were to take a risky approach at the beginning of my drafts, maybe I grab Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, and then I'm just looking for some guaranteed fantasy points because if those guys stay healthy, I already have access to an elite level ceiling. There, I'm drafting Brandon Cooks. But if I took it safe early on in my drafts, if I say took Najee Harris in the first and then there in the second round, instead of swinging for some elite level ceiling with like a Saquon Barkley, I played it safe and took DeAndre Swift. There, I'm not too interested in taking Brandon Cooks. But now our next wide receiver will be someone that's going a lot higher than this on Underdog Fantasy. Gabriel Davis, wide receiver 28. Talk about swinging for the fences here. I understand in a best ball tournament to take Gabriel Davis a little bit higher than this, given the raw upside that he were to have if he does indeed do a couple things. He A, steps into the Emmanuel Sanders role. B, after he gets that done, because we haven't seen it happen yet, but if it does happen, then B, he has to be as efficient as Emmanuel Sanders to then be a wide receiver 4 in fantasy. But Emmanuel Sanders was not efficient at all with Gabriel Davis on a very small sample, a very small role in Buffalo has been way more efficient. So even if we assume that Gabriel Davis is more efficient than Emmanuel Sanders was, then he's a volatile low-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. And that's assuming he steps into that Emmanuel Sanders role. Obviously, Jamison Crowder is going to go be Cole Beasley. I was drafting Emmanuel Sanders in Buffalo a ton in the double-digit rounds last season. I just can't pay the price of Gabriel Davis in the 4th. I understand he's been much more efficient on a limited sample. I understand he had the week of 201 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. I can't do 4th round Gabriel Davis. Now, in your casual drafts, if people aren't nearly as in on Gabriel Davis as they are on Underdog Fantasy and you get Gabriel Davis making it to you in the 6th, 7th round, hell yes, that's a screaming buy. That's a screaming value in those drafts, given the access to an elite level ceiling that he has. Because imagine if something were to occur to Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis would have top 10 wide receiver upside given the offense he's playing in. But here we will have Gabriel Davis as a high-end wide receiver 3. I think in a casual draft, if you can get him a little bit later, he'll be a target. But in those drafts on Underdog where people have gone out of their way, pushing him up to being a mid-4th, going before Justin Herbert, going before Mahomes, going before Lamar, going before Kittle, going before Montgomery, I'm out. Now, let's go to our next wide receiver, Rashad Bateman, wide receiver 29. Here with Rashad Bateman, he was a bad rookie, guys. I understand. He checks a ton of boxes coming out of Minnesota. I think his dynasty value is honestly fair, but I just don't understand the excitement about the situation here in Baltimore. Because if you were looking at Rashad Bateman, he is going into a Baltimore Ravens offense that in 2019 through 2020, so when Lamar Jackson is playing, when they have actual running backs, this team in game neutral environments ran the ball 57% of plays. 57% of plays. In 2020, they threw the ball like 400 times, and that was 100 less than like the 5th lowest volume passing offense. So a lot of people are looking at the lack of passing volume in Baltimore and saying, nope, can't draft Mark Andrews in round 2, despite Mark Andrews, historically speaking, being one of the most efficient players in fantasy football, one of the most efficient players in the NFL, and you're getting tight end designation with that guy. However, they're willing to draft Rashad Bateman, who last year had 1.3 yards per route run, one of the worst marks across any wide receivers in round 5. So with Bateman, I'm drafting him as a wide receiver 3. I'm sorry, I can't get behind having him as a round 5 pick. Like, I'm easily taking the upside that we have with Godwin in a better offense with a player that we know is talented, even if we have to be concerned a little bit more about the injury. So Bateman's not someone I'm going to be drafting very often because if you're trying to take him at wide receiver 29, he's just never going to be available. But someone that is going to be available, ranked at wide receiver 30, Michael Thomas. Got to throw our guy in here. And I know a lot of people are going to go down and hate me for this Michael Thomas ranking, but I need to be fair with my rankings, and I at least need to look at ADP. Because if I wanted to go and rank Michael Thomas with his best case scenario in mind, if I wanted to really consider the ceiling that we would have with Michael Thomas, I'd probably have him as a top 24 option. But the thing is, right now in fantasy drafts, Michael Thomas is going as a wide receiver 4. If I head over to Underdog Fantasy, yes, you can go draft Michael Thomas on Underdog Fantasy right now at this price point. Just make sure you go and use promo code FLOCK. You are looking at Michael Thomas as a player that's being drafted back-to-back with Allen Lazard around wide receiver 40. So if you plan on just ranking Michael Thomas at 30, you are still going to be getting him in so many damn drafts. However, you're not going to have to be overpaying for Michael Thomas in said drafts. But I think that's all I got for y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it. If you did, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. And of course, we'll be live streaming tonight. We'll be getting that 2022 fantasy football draft underway. So if you want to draft with us, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.